Okay, thanks everyone. Now it's my privilege
more,
to introduce
yeah.
our guest speaker today, Mr. Rushdee Warley, CEO, Inspire Institute of Sports. With over 20 years of experience in high performance sport, Rushdee has worked in a number of areas which include coaching, talent identification, and development, leading a national high performance program and strategic investment into high performance sports organizations. Rushdee's career has seen him working in South Africa, New Zealand, and most recently, India. During his time in South Africa, the swimming program he led won a total of 28 Commonwealth medals, 16 World Championship medals, 3 Olympic medals. Rushdee is currently the CEO of Inspire Institute of Sports, IIS, a JSW initiative where they are focused on providing a world-class daily training environment in which Indian athletes can fulfill and maximize their potential. In this environment, IIS is focused on supporting India's drive to achieve more medals at major international events and particularly the Olympic Games. Thank you. With that, I'll just request all the members to go on mute, please, and request Mr. Rushdee now to give his opening comments and share his views. And after that, I'll request members, if they have inputs or questions, we can take it up. Over to you, Mr. Rushdee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you all. It's indeed, obviously I see some very good friends around that I've interacted with over a period of time, and also some new friends that I've met today. Thank you for introducing yourselves, and for me to be able to speak to this group is indeed an honor and a privilege. I'd just like to, I'll give you a little bit about my background, and I've got a couple of slides that I'll share with you and some of the learnings that I've taken from the different areas that I've worked in, and also, what I think would be some recommendations going forward in terms of what I think, based on my last 7 years in India, would could potentially take us to to the next level of sport within India. So if you don't mind, I'll just share my screen and just take you through a few slides about about my experiences. Can you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Just that we are able to see the next slide also.
Oh, okay. Let me just swap the displays. Is that better?
Yeah, this is fine. Thank you.
Okay, that's much better. So, as you mentioned, I started, in fact, before coaching, I come from South Africa. I'm a South African national. I grew up right in the middle of apartheid, and as at that particular time, being a non-white person, we weren't allowed to compete. Many of the challenges that we faced included a lack of facilities, lack of being able to access certain infrastructure. Yeah, so that was where I started, and it shaped a lot of the values that I have today, and who I am. So I would, after at a point in time, I decided that we couldn't move much further, and I went into coaching. I was very fortunate to be able to coach at quite a high level. I've coached all the way up to World Championship level. And I was then given the opportunity to work for Swimming South Africa, the National Sporting Federation. I worked in talent development, I worked in high performance, I worked in general management. After a few years, I was given the opportunity to travel to New Zealand, or work in New Zealand at a company called High Performance Sport New Zealand. And that included working around performance and strategic investment with about 20 different sports. It's a privately owned company, but it's a private company, but entirely owned by government, which allowed for a lot of freedom and movement in terms of, just the operational aspects. In 2016, I had the opportunity to come to India with Inspire Institute of Sport, Inspire Institute of Sport, and it was just something that the opportunity and the vision that was sold to me was something that I just couldn't turn down. As importantly, right at the bottom, I'm also a parent of an elite athlete. My son happens to be a national team level athlete for South Africa in swimming. I go right across the board from administration to coaching to actually being a parent and trying not to mix up all the roles. So just a little bit about my role in South Africa. I started off after coaching. I was asked to join the national team or the national sports organization, and where I worked in talent identification and development, and that was largely around creating systems and processes for the junior national team. And within South Africa, the context would have also been to try and fast track young, talented Black athletes, non-white athletes were limited by the circumstances that they were in. I did that for a few years, and then I was promoted to lead the high performance program. So as a high performance manager / director, I worked in leading the strategic and operational leadership of the high performance program across all aspects. Whether that be, planning or, competitions, coach recruitment, right across the spectrum, including the entire spectrum and the junior national team. During this time, I also took on the role of general manager of athlete development, and that had everything to do with sports. So whether it was grassroots sports, education and training, competition, the development of competition management, plus the high performance program. I also oversaw that during my time at Swimming South Africa. For me, we had the biggest challenge that we had in Swimming South Africa was that it was very fragmented and there wasn't a shared vision. In fact, the new strategic plan that I refer to here from 2008, it actually started in 2003. In 2004, we had probably had what was a moment in South Africa where our men's 4x1 freestyle relay team actually won a gold medal. Yet we only had 7 swimmers at the Olympic Games. And for us, it was about creating an environment that we'd have athletes achieving what they achieve, not in spite of what we do, but because of what we do. And we looked at changing a system that was what appeared to be a successful environment. So they went to the Olympic Games. These, our athletes, there were 7 men, no women at the time, that qualified for the 2004 Olympic Games. They happened to go there. They won the gold medal in the relay. They also happened to, one of the swimmers won a silver and a bronze along the way. However, as I said, it was 7 males and no females, and it was essentially just pure investment that went into these boys who had all based themselves in the US. We went through multiple rounds of consultation and trying to understand how it is that we could move things forward. And what came up with was that we had to do a complete system overall. And that's very, very difficult and very challenging when there's an area of perceived success. Changing things from the way it is always a challenge with many people wanting to keep the status quo. But our objective was always to deliver sustainable results, to create an environment whereby, more people will coming into the national team. We knew, despite all the challenges we were facing, that, starting our program after 2003 with the success that we had in 2004 was always going to be something that was going to be challenging. In 2008, we had no medals at the Olympic Games, but we stuck to a shared vision. We had people out there that were championing the cause, that were part and parcel of multiple rounds of consultations, that were part of a vision, a shared vision. Everything started turning around slowly after that, but on a continuous basis, we started seeing young athletes from South Africa starting to deliver results. not athletes that were necessarily being based in the US anymore. Across, I mean, you've highlighted some of the results. I mean, across 4 world championships between 2005 and 2012, there were 16 medals at world championship level, 2 Commonwealth Games. The one in 2006, there were 12. In 2010, there were 16 medals for 28 in total. And then finally in 2012, which saw the pinnacle of the program, where there was 3 Olympic medals, 2 of which were gold. And in fact, the third one probably should be gold also, because the guy that won gold was caught for doping a year and a half, 2 years later. But even though they were, you know, that was in 2012, we had to take the pain of 2008, but stuck to our position, stuck to our guns. Having said that, in 2008, we had 28 swimmers that went to the Olympic Games, 20 of which qualified, 20 male swimmers and 8 female swimmers. So clearly, even though the challenges we were facing from what would have been a successful system was starting to bear fruit. But I think for me, the most satisfying part of it was getting a group of people together, sharing in a vision and being very clear about what it is that we were trying to achieve. Without the support of the people and multiple rounds of consultations, speaking to different coaches, getting them on board, aligning all that we were doing, changing a system that appeared to be working all the way through, whether that be a competition structure, a local competition structure, national selections, national squad programs, everything was changed. But we weren't afraid to change it. We were just very confident that if we continued on the path that we had, understood what it is that we were trying to do and move forward, eventually the results would come. So, I mean, that was just a little bit about South Africa. For me, my biggest learning opportunity came when I moved to New Zealand. I went to New Zealand as my role there was as a performance consultant. And as I mentioned, I worked for a company called High Performance Sport New Zealand. The company was a company that is, it's a private company that's entirely owned by government. But because it was a private company, the agility to do business was much easier than what it would be for government. During my time there, I was also asked to fulfill the role of the Olympic campaign manager for the swim team. But again, coming to my role, and that was just about making sure that the team got to the Olympic Games because the high performance director had left. But for me to work with about 20 different sports, some of which included rowing, triathlon, Paralympics New Zealand, boxing New Zealand, working with these major multi-medal winning sports was an opportunity for me to learn and grow as a sports administrator. And for me, the key elements of what I was doing, I've listed some of them out. I was working with coaches, with high performance directors and CEOs around the long-term planning for the sports. How it is that the vision between High Performance Sports New Zealand and the national sports organizations are aligned. Are we moving in the same direction? Ultimately, all funding, or 90% of funding, would come from High Performance Sport New Zealand. And to ensure that there's alignment between the two was very important. I played the role of a critical friend, asking the hard questions of the national sports organizations, and yet still trying to balance that with being a supporter. We would look at investment recommendations based on the performance of the national sports organizations over different periods of time, depending on the level of sport that we were dealing with. Monitoring and evaluation on a quarterly basis, and formal evaluation processes and reviews would be done on an annual basis. I also personally had the opportunity to lead certain campaign sports which weren't directly funded through the national sports organization. So, for example, shooting, boxing, canoe slalom, golf. Working with them, working with individual athletes and support teams around those athletes still allowed me to maintain, a direct foot in the door of performance. I think for me, some of the key learnings in New Zealand was again, that, there's a overarching strategy, a national strategy that was understood by everybody. Everybody understood what it is that we were trying to do. The entire team would just shut down for 2 days, and everybody from the CEO to the reception to the coaches and the support staff would all be expected to be available. And there'd be a joint development of the strategic plan going forward. And that was done once every 4 years. There would be input from the national sports organizations. But most importantly, the strategy was something that was shared by every person along the way. In New Zealand, there was a very disciplined and investment process that took place. New Zealand is a country of only 4 million people. And there's a very focused approach to how investment is done, and it's done almost, ruthlessly on a business principled approach. It's a very focused approach, and what it is that how sports can evidence how they can contribute to the national strategic objective, which I spoke about earlier. So a sport like rowing, for example, would be very clearly an opportunity to win 5 medals at the Olympic Games. Therefore, the investment was much higher. The overarching desire was always about putting more New Zealanders on the world stage. So even though a sport like life-saving was really, successful, I didn't see New Zealanders winning at the Olympic Games, and therefore didn't warrant the same kind of investment. So life-saving could go to Australia, win 2 world championships, and secure a 2-year investment of $180,000. Rowing would, because they can potentially deliver 5 to 6 Olympic medals, they would get a 6-year investment or a 5-year investment of probably anywhere up to $6 million of cash each year. The thing about New Zealand is there's always a relentless desire to learn at every opportunity. And that goes across the board. After every competition, there would be an expectation, and as part of their investment schedule, how is it that we've learned from what we've done? What is it that we can learn from a debriefing process as to how we can move forward? What did we do well? What should we do? What should we continue to do? And what should we stop doing? This process is very formal. It's an automated process plus an in-person process, and it includes everybody. It includes the staff, it includes the athletes, the coaches, the CEO, everybody gets included in that. But all those learnings are brought together to understand how it is that, a sport can be more successful, or alternatively, where a sport has been successful, how is it that you can actually use that same information and transfer that to any other sport or to the wider sporting environment as to how you can achieve a greater deal of success. In New Zealand, one of the other things that I learned was, they've got this phrase called the number 8 wire mentality. Because things are limited and opportunities are not as forthcoming as what it would be anywhere else because of the size of the place, you've got to do and make do with what you have. It's that simple. Find ways, innovative ways of enhancing what you do. It doesn't always boil down to money. It boils down to different thought processes and prioritization. Creativity and ingenuity. We worked with some of the best engineers, software engineers, researchers and development professionals that I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and that would be from people involved in Team New Zealand, which is the national sailing team, where some of the best technology is brought out, to the cycling team. Some of the people working in F1 would be involved in that, but the opportunity to use the technology and learnings from technology, AI, and different elements of research and development would be, a key element as to how New Zealand continued to be successful. Talent transfer, something that was also done very well, understanding how it is that you can transfer athletes between different sports and what sports are open to that. Some of the athletes that have gone from one sport to another have gone on to win medals at both levels both sports at a high international level. But that is just about, again, providing opportunities, thinking outside the box. Some of the athletes from rowing would go to netball. Some of the athletes from cycling would go to rowing. You had even some of the athletes that were on the cycling team being part of Team New Zealand, and as part of the America's Cup, which is the biggest sailing race in the world at the moment. But the opportunity to understand how it is that you can maximize potential is something that New Zealand does extremely well. So just a little bit about Inspire Institute of Sport. The one thing that attracted me most to Inspire, and when I spoke to our promoter, Paul Jindal and Mustafa Gas, one of the things that attracted me was there was a blank canvas approach. It was essentially dare to dream. Allow yourself to not be constrained by what you know now, and find ways of creating an environment that works for India, works within the context within which you live. And in this particular case, it's Vijayanagar, which is very, very different in Ballari. It's also, the opportunity, and it's exactly what I sell to all the staff that come in here. You have the opportunity to change how it is that you've done things, how it is that you've always thought about doing things. Be creative in what you do. Allow yourself to look at things differently. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. As long as those mistakes, as long as you're going to learn from it, it's extremely important. We drive, every day we drive a culture of performance excellence. And I believe that it starts from the top. So it starts from me. Everything that we look for is around excellence in performance, whether that be our coaching, whether that be our sports science, whether that be our maintenance. Everybody has a role to play in what we do. As I said, from my perspective, it starts from me, and I try to live that every day with the people that we have on board. We have a very athlete-centered approach. It's coach-led and sports science supported. So what that means to me is that the athlete is at the center of everything. However, the coach is the person that conducts the show. He needs to understand how it is that he brings all relevant stakeholders into the fray, and what it is that their role is in terms of supporting the environment. He's got to provide them with a wider vision as to how it is that they will contribute to the performance of an individual athlete, but also that of the program. We have a very focused approach. Up to now, we've been in operation for quite a few years now. We opened our doors in 2017. We brought our first athletes in. We've had 5 sports all the way through. It's been very focused. For us, it was about understanding the environment, understanding our business, understanding the cost of doing business, what are the best systems and processes to follow, how is it that we can adapt the processes that we have to suit the environment, to best support the athletes and the people around us. What we look for every day is how it is that we facilitate a world-class daily training environment for our people and our athletes. So just on that note, I mean, it's something that I say to everybody every day here. We have to have a world-class daily training environment. And what does that mean? Everything. It means how it is that we deliver our coaching sessions. It means how we deliver our sports science support, how it is we provide food to the athletes, the accommodation that we provide for everybody, the horticulture around the place. Everybody contributes. Just to give you an example, an extreme example, the way we see it here, we have got our coaches and we know how it is that they deliver, and how it is that they deliver the support that they do, and there's a direct impact. But if you take it from a horticulture point of view, if our horticulture team doesn't understand that they're part of this world-class daily training environment and we're looking for excellence in what they do, they won't have the same drive and determination, which would mean that the greenery around us is impacted. And if the greenery around us is impacted, the first thing that happens is the temperature goes up. Once the temperature goes up, it becomes more challenging to train in our environment. if our facilities maintenance team doesn't look after the facility in a world-class manner, you start picking up, small bits and pieces, athletes can slip and fall, you start picking up, skin diseases and things like that. So everybody understands that they contribute something. You have the sports science and that's obvious, you have the coaching and that's obvious, but everybody understands, and it's what I drive with them every day, and part and parcel of what we do is everybody helps contribute. It's a lot like what, in 1962, JFK went to NASA and he saw the janitor working there and he asked the janitor, what are you doing? And the janitor's response was, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And we try to look with that same thought process in how it is that everybody works together on an ongoing basis. We're very people-driven. We look at how it is that we create ongoing learning opportunities for our people. We've got a fantastic facility. I believe we've got a world-class facility and we're continuing to develop it. But our key advantage is the people that we have. They're very enthusiastic. We've got a young group, and we look at it. We look at opportunities, how it is that they can continuously improve. Whether that be through formal courses or informal courses, we challenge them to find these opportunities, go out there, be better than what they can, be better than what they were yesterday, and come back and contribute towards making the athletes that they work with better athletes. Holistic development is something that we are, we're very, very strong on. For us, we have a school on site. It's really important that we develop the athletes into holistic people. And, stealing a line from the All Blacks, which is one of my favorite sports teams, they have a saying that goes, better people, better All Blacks, or better men, better All Blacks. And for me, better people, better athletes is as important for somebody to be a good person and to be a world champion. I think you look at somebody like Neeraj, and he epitomizes all of that. He's a fantastic human being, and he just happens to be an Olympic gold medalist too. So how do we do what we do every day? For us, our planning is really important. We look at long-term planning and we look at annual planning, and then budgeting in order to support those plans. Like any business, it's around the systems and processes and procedures that are put in place to manage the environment, to manage the plans and the costing out of those plans. It's really important that I spoke earlier on about the coach being able to share that vision. We have an organizational vision that we share, but it's as important to be able to integrate everybody and understand, everybody understands what their role is in contributing towards the wider cause. I'm not somebody who likes being in my office, so there's ongoing informal discussions that I have. I enjoy going out into the classrooms. I enjoy going out into the combat hall where I see all the athletes that are working out in there, down to the track, and being able to speak to the people there. For me, it gives me invaluable insight as to what our people are thinking and how it is that we can provide more and better opportunities for our people and for our athletes. We also have regular feedback sessions with our athletes. It's really important for them to be heard. Any athlete has the freedom to be able to walk into our office anytime, and there's a very clear directive to every athlete that if they ask a question, people need to be able to answer you. It's not only about being able to be told what to do, but being able to understand what they're doing and being able to ask the questions and expecting an answer. We believe that giving them this opportunity allows them to be accountable for their performances, which in turn allows for a much better person. Like any business, we have an organizational quarterly review, which goes all the way up to our board. The board will sit with us for an entire day, work through it on a quarterly basis, whereby we'd have to report not only against our KPIs, which includes a performance KPI and program KPIs, and also budgetary KPIs. So a lot of what I've taken from and learned from New Zealand in terms of driving a business-minded approach to sport is what I've tried to impart here at IAS. So just some of my suggestions from purely based on my time here in India. For me, I'd like to see that there's a national strategic plan driven right from the top down, and not necessarily from the national sports organization, but from the government, understanding what it was. I remember a few years ago when the previous sports minister stated very boldly that India needs to be a top 10 nation in the world. And, whether that was achievable or not is irrelevant, but at least for me, I could very clearly understand what that meant. To me, that would mean India needs to have at least 30 medals at the Olympic game, of which 10 medals will go. Now, again, like I said, whether that's achievable or not, that's debatable, but there's absolute clarity on how it is that, what it is that you need to do in order to achieve the wider vision of what was being put out there. I would like to see the professionalization of sports organizations, where you have a CEO, where you have contracted coaches for longer periods of time, where there's a strategic plan in place, coaching plans, coaching education plans, national competition plans, clear selection policies and pathways. I think these are really important. National sports organizations should be the custodians of all sports, whether that, and it goes across the spectrum, from grassroots to elite. Governance structures within national sports organizations, really, really important to be able to guide and oversee the strategic direction. A lot of that I would see, and you see it in many other countries where you have independent directors sitting on boards, which provides direction to operational aspects of what is happening. Systems and processes need to be articulated, need to be formalized. At least in that way, everybody's understanding what it is that they need to do, what it is they can do, and what it is that should be done. Clear and transparent investment principles, whether that be at the national level or national sports organization level. Athletes need to know what they need to do in order to achieve a level of investment. I think that is something that can be worked on a little bit more. I think it needs to be out there and articulated more. And finally, I think if we're looking for world-class athletes, we need to have world-class sports administrators, and that goes to the sports education sector. Just imparting in the last thing, in 2010, I did a business school. I went to business school and I did a course at the business school. And the course was sponsored by the biggest broadcaster in Africa, SuperSport. And the CEO came in one day and he basically came in for a Q&A session. And one of the questions he was asked was, needless to say, you all know that broadcast money drives a lot of opportunities and funding into sport. But the question he was asked is, why are you investing in a business management course? And his response was quite simple. He said, in order for me to have a fantastic product, I need people that are leading national sports organizations in the most efficient and effective manner, and providing some of the top young administrators with the opportunity to learn the business aspects of sport is as important for us to have national coaches that can win medals. So, that was my learning and some of my observations, some of my learnings from the time I spent in South Africa and New Zealand and India. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me and the opportunity to present my thoughts in this forum.
Thank you very much, Rushdee. Can I request Kavita, if you can, bring everyone in. I think this was a very comprehensive presentation. So if you can have a round of applause for Mr. Warley, please. I'm sure based on these inputs, there are lots of questions or points of view. I'll request members to place them now. Thank you.
I would like to speak.
Yeah, please go ahead.
My question is directly to you, Rushdee. As I have heard all your projects and your points, key points to develop the world-class athletes. So, is there something or anything what we can do to develop into para? Because as we talk about India, India right now is much more growing into para if you compare with the able body. And I'm specifically working into canoe, para canoe, since almost 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And yes, I can surely say that we can have world-class athletes, but one of few athletes are able to go to that level to have the facilities and the infrastructure. And to Arun, you also to go sports, few athletes have been applied for the scholarship and they're trying to get the facilities because they deserve. They have proven themselves at the international level, at the Asian level since so many years. So this is my question to both of you, that what can we do? Because we have athletes, we have their performances, but they are not able to get something like infrastructure or some facilities so that they can train themselves to that world-class level.
Okay, from my perspective, we're currently looking at how it is that we make our facility more accessible and the environment that we have more accessible. We do actually have an athlete, Ajit, from that does para javelin, that is training with us at the moment. We can do a lot more that makes our facilities accessible, especially in areas like, things like para athletics. I think there's a huge opportunity. You're right. I mean, if you look at some of the results that have come out of Paralympic athletes over the last, even over the last couple of weeks, never mind the last couple of years, there's been some really exceptional results. I think finding ways to, create further platforms whereby, things like classification becomes more accessible. These are things that, from my perspective, that are really important, and how it is that there's more opportunities for young people because the athlete the pathway, the performance pathway is much shorter than what you would have in able body. It's getting to an elite level. There's definitely a shorter time period in terms of being able to transition from grassroots to elite. So finding ways and upskilling coaches specifically around para athletes is one thing, as another way to do it. But as I said, I think one of the things that in my discussions with when we looked at para would be around providing access to classification opportunities where para athletes can start filtering into different sports. I also think that there's a huge opportunity for existing para athletes to transition into different sports that allows them to widen the scope of what it is that they're doing. As I said, we're in the process of looking at how different ways of making the facility more accessible. We have had athletes already and will continue to provide where we can access and support to those athletes.
Okay, my next point is, if you said about the classification system. So in India, unfortunately, we do not have the international level classifiers.
Yeah.
If I talk about canoe, para canoe and para kayaking, so I am the first international classifier who started working with the International Canoe Federation as a level 5.
Can we, ma'am, just restrict ourselves to questions, please? Because I'm sure there are
My
others.
question is,
Please keep it short also. Thank you.
Sure. My question is, about the classification. I can contribute as a classifier, as a classification knowledge from the canoe, and as the perspective of classification, somehow all the different sports in the para are interrelated. So you said your athletes can transition into one sports to another. So is it possible to include the classifiers into your system?
I mean, at the moment, I mean, where we stand right now, I mean, we are looking at supporting athletes. I agree that it's a critical role that needs to be played. Do I ever feel that, especially from a classification point of view, it's something that needs to be driven by, the Paralympic body, that because at the end of the day, they would be the people that would be providing the classification status to the different para federations. So, I mean, for me, it's largely driven by, the Paralympic body of India.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I actually sit here. Can you hear me? Hi. One quick question, very small question. I think what you guys have done is phenomenal work, and I've seen the facilities. It's mind blowing. But how do you think that we can actually have multiple smaller facility across India where people can actually use and make it accessible? Because I think accessibility becomes the issue with this kind of setups. And like I have my football club, I have 250 kids playing there, but having at least my elites, 30-40 elite kids can come and do something like this at smaller scale. What do you think that, because going a step towards making India a sporting nation, it's also high performing sporting nation. So how do you think that model can be achieved by the smaller setups?
I think what we've done, and I'll just give an example of what we've done, and I don't know if it answers your question. We've gone into a PPP model in Hisar, for example, and that is a center, a size center that we're also supporting through both operational aspects and manpower. I think there's a huge scope for further PPP models in and around the country that will allow us to gain a much wider footprint. We're doing something similar in Orissa, and particularly in swimming in Orissa. We've joined together with the Orissa state government. And I mean, we're in probably around 15 different areas in Orissa where we're doing grassroots development in terms of the sport of swimming and water safety. So, I think that's one way to be able to get a much wider footprint, because trying to set up even smaller centers across the country does come at a great cost, and it doesn't always become sustainable. But government does have access to these facilities, and if you can start co-funding an area like that where there's co-investors, it certainly does make your opportunity to reach a lot more people much wider. The other part about it, I think that I'd love to see more in India would be around the education system, where sports activity and sports and access to sport in school is something that's that is given much more importance in what is happening, because I think that is one way to be able to impact a huge amount of children.
Yes, exactly. So the accessibility becomes the biggest issue, nothing else.
But
thank you.
Me, it could be through, I think it could be through the schools, to be honest with you. I think in many countries you'll find that there's a close relationship between the sports department and the education department, and co-funded opportunities in terms of facilities within schools or within education programs that is funded through both education and sport, because they're so strongly interlinked.
Yes. Hope to reach there. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Rushdee.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate taking out the time and making a very comprehensive presentation. I'm sure this was an opportunity for some of our members to also learn a little bit more in this area, and some of them might get in touch with you also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'd be more than happy to be in touch with everybody. My email is available through the secretary. So please, if you want to reach out, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.